Here's what's been going viral today. Even on Elon Musk's Twitter, there are red lines for permissible content. And Kanye West, or now known as Ye, who calls himself Ye, crossed one of them with a late Thursday night post that prompted the platform to suspend his account. And all of this comes as we're awaiting, patiently, some news from Elon Musk regarding Hunter Biden. It's a lot to digest. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Sarah Farrar, who leads our coverage of big tech here at Bloomberg. Sarah, this is pretty confusing, but let's start with the news of the day, I suppose, so far. An action by Elon Musk that Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, went too far. Give us the details.
Well, he posted a swastika, and Elon Musk, who had previously seemed to embrace him, even though he is a controversial figure, they have had a history of semi-friendship, and then he said, listen, you've gone too far. This isn't love, he said. And he suspended Ye. And I think that was certainly shocking for everyone who's been a fan of Ye, even though we've heard these reports of his anti-Semitic comments in the past. But I also think that some of Elon Musk's supporters who thought, well, you're building this version of Twitter where anything goes, where it's a free speech absolutist environment. We're a little surprised that he did end up taking action with Ye's post, as opposed to saying, anything goes here on this new version of Twitter.
BuzzFeed reported and shared an image of a screenshot from Ye's account where it appeared to show that the suspension was only for 12 hours. Bloomberg's not verified that. We don't know. But I thought that was interesting. The other thing we're waiting for is the launch of this new verification system, Twitter Blue, color codes for different entities and individuals. We don't think it's happened quite yet, but it could happen.
Verification is so complicated, right? Because it is only something that has been available to a select few public officials, celebrities, journalists, sports figures on the internet who are at risk of impersonation. And what Musk is trying to do with Twitter Blue is let anyone pay for it. And in the process, maybe those people will end up impersonating these brands that the first time they launched it, it was a total mess because we saw all these major brands from Eli Lilly to Nintendo be impersonated and lose value, and we saw advertisers pull their right. spend. So I'm not surprised that it's delayed. It's a tough thing to get right, and a hard problem to just come at this and say anyone can have a blue check as long as they pay $8.
Bloomberg's Sarah Farrar, stay with us just for a minute. Let's carry on the conversation, though, and bring in Claire Diaz-Ortiz. She was formerly Twitter's head of corporate social innovation and philanthropy, 2009 to 2014, currently VC scout for Kleiner Perkins in Latin America. You also wrote a book about Twitter, Twitter for Good.
No, don't read it now.
Well, let's start on this issue of the day. The decision to suspend Ye's account. Musk does appear to have red lines. You know the Twitter platform. You were there for many years, although it's been 8 years since you left the company. What is your read on content moderation and policy decisions so far to this point?
So I think it's really important to reframe kind of the language we use a little bit. We hear a lot of people talking about content moderation, and I understand that is sort of what we call it, but that really sits within trust and safety. And safety is really important. And the connection between free speech and safety is what Elon does not seem to understand. I kind of sometimes say, watching Elon build in public is kind of a mess because he really doesn't know what he's doing, right? He's going back to what we thought social media was 15 years ago and using a lot of that language and a lot of those guidelines. But we've now seen, those of us who've worked at these companies, who've been on these trust and safety teams, who've written books about social media, we know that those things don't work, right? In the early days of Twitter, of social media in general, we simply didn't understand that we were creating information silos, that we were a fertile breeding ground for misinformation, and we really didn't understand that certain people were more persecuted than others.
When you talk about that, I mean, it is a problem that seems easier to solve from the outside, right? Why won't we just let everyone say whatever they want to say? Well, because then it creates a terrible user experience. I mean, as you see Musk sort of rediscover all the things that you had discovered when you were at Twitter. What has been surprising to you so far? I'll tell you, I was surprised today by him categorizing harassment as spam. I thought that was an interesting new way of thinking about harassment that maybe actually is positive. What do you think is becoming real to him now in a way that maybe it wasn't before?
Well, I mean, some of these things are coming real to him, right? Like he's starting to understand, okay, harassment might actually be a problem in a way I didn't understand it because I am the richest man in the world and I am a white bro who hasn't had concerns about trust and safety in a long time in my life, right? So some of these things, maybe he's slowly starting to see sort of the light or gain some empathy on, but ultimately it's way too slow and it's not happening. So it's just very concerning for users out there who want to actually use the platform. And for advertisers
Claire,
who want to use it.
I think I'm right in saying many years ago, then known as Kanye West, now known as Ye, walked into the building and sent his first tweet while you were there. Can you give us the details around that and what happened?
Yeah, I remember in the summer of 2010 in California, Kanye came in one day, lit up a blunt, and then sent his first tweet. And the first tweet, if you go back and look at it, is him spelling Silicon Valley wrong and then following it up with a joke about women's breast implants.
Okay, we'll move on from that subject of Ye, generally speaking. You have focused your writing and your time at Twitter on the platform as a mechanism for social good. And Musk talks about Twitter being the global town square, and he has shared data in recent days about the growth of the platform, but also the decline of what appears to be the decline of hate speech. Are there any areas you actually agree with Musk on, things that he's done, things that he's said about the potential for the platform?
So I do, I mean, if there's one thing I won't begrudge Elon Musk, it is that he really should be redoing the verification platform. And it's good to see him try, although he's failing a lot in doing things we did 10 or 15 years ago. Verification, since it started in 2009, when a baseball manager was impersonated on Twitter and then sued Twitter as a result, has always been a dumpster fire, and it's always been very complicated. And from the beginning, there were not enough staff to handle it. I was one of many people tasked with sort of working out some of the guidelines, and it's never really worked. So in principle, the idea that people could pay to be verified is actually something I think could be a good idea. It may not be something I would pay for. It may not be something you would pay for, but it is something that many people out there would pay for, and it certainly will ideally reduce the demand, right? Anyone who's ever worked at Twitter, 10 years later, they're still getting DMs in their Twitter feed, people asking to be verified, right? So there's a huge demand for it that he can ultimately, hopefully, capture some of by charging for. Unfortunately, when he launched Twitter Blue last month, for the $8, $7.99 monthly fee, he ran into his own problem of content moderation and spam bots just going crazy with the service.
What do you think about his own content? The way that he's been posting on Twitter in this really showman-like manner, where every few hours there's another bombshell. Even today, that this teasing of a big drop of a story that's about to come. I mean, this is the way that he's been running it, and perhaps is leading to these higher user numbers or signups that we're seeing, or that he's talking about. Is that a sustainable way to run Twitter? Is that something that even if it leads to user growth, would be something you would recommend doing long term?
It's absolutely not sustainable, obviously, from the side of user growth, but also from the side of advertisers. More than half his advertising budget has dropped since the advertisers are all pulling out. I mean, I think it's important to understand what he's doing today on Twitter with this proposed live chat thing he's supposed to be going live with right now is really an example of the way he behaves. The last time I was on, I compared him to some of my twin children who don't have prefrontal cortexes, and I feel like he's sort of the same way. But I mean, what he's doing today is he's trying to get back at the Twitter security and Twitter safety and trust head who was just kicked out. And so this is sort of a revenge thing he's doing. Yoel Roth went on Kara Swisher's podcast and basically discussed what had happened during the Hunter Biden laptop tweet censoring back in the fall of 2020. And so, I mean, now he's just coming out because Roth has now quit and now he's going to go against him. It's horrible.